where we're going to be at after that. We might have another Democratic Party come in and change a lot of the things that we've got going on. We might have another Republican Party come in and keep it going. But what we do know is that for the next 2.5 years, you are guaranteedly going to get into the most chaotic government overhaul where you will find yourself being able to profit in places where billionaires are going to take a bunch of losses. The poor folk who didn't have money in the game before the change will be able to dive in during the change and then become millionaires after the change. And that's one of the biggest things you've got to pay attention to. You have to put your money in places where your money is making money for you. You have to put your money in places where you're profiting from the money, okay, so that you don't have to do it anymore. So throughout the entire show, like Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we're giving you guys information about personal development, uh, self improvement, relationship topics, negotiations, socializations, building your brand, negotiating promotions, raises, retirement packages, discussing severance packages. Because even when you get fired off the job, you can talk how you're getting out of that. You know what I mean? That way, use up all of the benefits that you got before they cut them off. Negotiate with them that take me off the schedule, but let me burn all of this before. Because as long as you're not coming into work, they usually don't care. You know what I mean? Because I mean, if it prevents them or delays them from having to pay you for unemployment compensation, then there it is. You know, uh, these are the things that you can negotiate, and then after that, we teach you guys about building your 20-year plan. And really, I mean, yeah, if you're like Michael's age is like 72, your 20-year plan might actually be like a 5 or 10 year plan. But if you're in your 40s or your 30s, you know. You should have another 40 or 50 years left under your belt, which means that you can do a 20-year plan to change from the mistakes that you had to overcome and start planning for a future that you're satisfied with. And it's hard to get started when you look at the end goal and think to yourself, that's where I want to be at, but not know how to get there. But if you reverse engineer, what do you need to get there? What do you got to do to accomplish that? And reverse engineer it all the way down to the first step. And I tell you guys all the time, first step is doing something that don't cost you a dollar. Second step is doing something that might cost you a little bit of money. But you want to go from the free easy to the free hard to the cheap easy to the cheap hard to the expensive easy to the expensive hard and stair step your way to success. As you're generating revenue, you can take the profits off of your investments and then utilize that to reinvest that into the more expensive areas of improving your life. You can downgrade from the overly expensive lifestyle that you have. And instead of driving around in a Bentley, you can drive around in a Camry. Instead of driving around in a brand new car, you can drive around in a certified pre-owned car. Reduce your car payments. You can go from a luxury sports car down to an economy car. Reduce your car insurance. You can consolidate credit cards. I wouldn't cut them off, but you can remove all of your debt from the high interest rate credit cards and move them to low interest rate credit cards. You can, especially if you're going to move them and put them into a zero down payment scenario where you can actually pay towards the principal and not have to deal with the monthly interest rates. There are a lot of things that you can do. You can borrow money to invest and then take the profits off of the investment and pay off the loan so that you're using somebody else's money to turn a profit. As long as the interest rates of the money you're borrowing is less than the interest rates of the money you're investing in, and there's a large enough profit after taxes where you get a little bit of money on the back end, 50 grand from one place that's got a 8 or 9% interest rate, and then a brokerage account that has an 18% interest rate. You've got a 10% difference after taxes. You still got 7% return on somebody else's money. There's other ways that you can do this. You can invest in legal services. I covered that before, where you just see a guaranteed case that's just short funding, and you can just contract yourself into that case and provide them with the capital that they need to get the case across, and then you get back way more money than what you put down, and you don't got to do nothing but sign a contract and wait for the case to close. You got people doing that with car crashes, where they're putting up 5 grand at a time to cover the expenses of the parties in the case that are guaranteed to get a settlement. And in doing that, you could put up $5,000 to get back $7,000 each time. And as long as they're getting more than $25,000 off their settlement, you're walking away guaranteed. Within 6 months of closing that case, you're getting money in the bank. and you're able to capitalize on these things. There's no effort, and you can do something like this by partnering with the legal services. So contact lawyers like, hey, if your client ever needs to borrow some money towards their case, you know, draft a contract, let the lawyer look it over, tell them give me a call. As long as they've got enough room to cover the spread, tell them to give me a call. I'll work it out for them. These are the parameters: 5, 10, 15,000, or 5,000 per, uh, uh, just to keep it low to make sure that they can afford it. 5,000 per. I'll front you 5 grand. If you need more, let me know. And then the attorney will always verify that there's enough settlement money left over to pay you back in full, and you can get paid off of that. So if you've got 20 grand lying around, you can get yourself involved in 4 people's car crash and get $2,000 more than what you put down for each one of them, just by doing something like that, right? So there's plenty of ways that your money can make money for you. People don't think about these things. We think about getting out of bed, putting on a uniform, and showing up like a drone and doing what we're told. Here on this and that, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between, we give you guys so many different ways that you can find ways to make money for you. Because if the hardest part of your day was getting in your vehicle, driving to a law firm, and writing a check so that you can then get back in your vehicle and go back to that same law firm and collect an even bigger check, I think that's all in a day's work. Not gonna lie, because that's like rolling out of bed just to collect money. And then if you're in one of them situations where you only go out there to write the check, and then the bank wire transfers the money to you when the case is closed, you don't even got to pick up the second check. There's so many things out there for you guys. So today what we're going to be covering, because I know we got things going on with Iran, and I know we're going to be dealing with a lot of benefits from. Special shout out to everybody that's watching us on Twitter today. I want to give you guys a lot of love because this is a highly interactive podcast. And while we are primarily on YouTube, we're also on Twitch, we're also on Twitter, and we're trying to work on getting ourselves on TikTok live as well, um, collectively. So if you guys that are watching us on Twitter have any interest in putting your 2 cents in, by all means, get into that comment section and do so. Highly interactive podcast. We don't always have to agree, but I would definitely like to hear your insights. Just keep your comments appropriate. But today we're going to be talking about the war at the pump, basically, because we understand that while they're blowing stuff up in Iran, I'm going to be doing some myth busting today because I know that I have seen some clickbait on social media where there was allegations that Iran was offering some ceasefire negotiations, and that's not true. So we're going to be going through a lot of that stuff today, and then how the big beautiful bill is starting to impact people in 2026 after taxes versus how this war on oil is counteracting that, and how we're going to be seeing some differences, especially with the swing back of the tariffs. So we're going to be covering that today so that you guys can pay attention that everything that happens somewhere else, it's not about the conflict. It's not about the lives lost over there. It's about how it can directly impact your money. And I know some people are going to say that's heartless, but capitalism is just that: capitalizing. You're capitalizing on somebody's stupidity. You're capitalizing on somebody's misery. You're capitalizing on somebody's inability to perform. You're capitalizing on somebody's laziness. You find what other people don't want to deal with in life, and then you get paid to fix that problem for them. It's capitalism. Okay. So in investments, where there's chaos, there's volatility, and where there's volatility, there's profits. So I focus on a topic as it directly impacts your ability to make, save, and invest money, because really and truly, we should not have another generation of poverty. We should not have another generation of unknowledgeable individuals. The stuff that I teach you on this podcast is not taught in schools. It should be, but it's not. So since it's not, it's going to come from here. It's going to become common knowledge and passed down from generation to generation. But in order for you to know how to teach your kids how to make, save, and invest money, you got to learn it yourself. And since you don't know anybody, and I didn't know anybody growing up, I had to learn it, and then I got to teach it to you. Mentorship is not just getting it from above. It is mentoring down and across to the individuals who can benefit from this. In order for us to make changes in our society, we have to change ourselves, first person accountability, and then hold the people around us equally accountable. All of us as adults, the next generation of taking over this country, is supposed to be leading the examples for the Gen Zs and the YNs and all the little jits out there that's acting bad right now with the Glock switches. We got to teach them how to behave, not by taking the matters into our own hands and providing discipline to them, but showing them how you can be successful without being an idiot, right? And then we build ourselves the type of society when we reach retirement age in 30 years, the kids that are 18 and 25 will be 50. They will be in the shoes that we're in now, and we will be able to say that our country isn't shit, our society isn't garbage, that we're satisfied with where we are. So it isn't about blaming the government, it isn't about blaming politics. So a society makes itself either good or bad, and it's going to be the behaviors of the individual people involved. So if more of us in this bottom 75% put our time and effort into building each other up so that we can no longer have a bottom 25%, we should have more than 60% of the population in the middle class if we're not in the upper middle class. And we should be able to find ourselves living a Dubai life where the majority of people are multimillionaires, passing down second generation wealth to the next generation. We should not have more than half of our country living from dollar to dollar and being broke as fuck, right? So in today's topic, I want to step into a scenario because if you imagine early 2026, just about 3 weeks ago, uh, if you went to bed in a world that, for all its faults, was technically at peace, and then you woke up to the news that the United States and Israel has launched a massive coordinated air assault against Iran. Now, in our scenario, since that morning, you know, coalition forces have conducted thousands of strikes. The supreme leader of Iran is dead in that hypothetical. And, key military and industrial sites across the country, from missile facilities to oil terminals, have been systematically dismantled. You know, and while the geopolitical shockwaves are still radiating outwards, another more personal shockwave is already hitting home. It's hitting you at the gas pump. So that is a pretty interesting hypothetical scenario. The chaos on the other side of the world is affecting you at the gas pump, and it is going to be hitting you at the grocery stores. And it's going to be about to create a brutal collision right inside of your bank account. Because at the exact same time that this fictional war began, a series of enormous hypothetical tax cuts were just starting to show up in people's paychecks. We were told that this was the dawn of a new era, and for the American worker, more money, less taxes. Your paycheck was supposed to get bigger, and for many of you, it has. But that's not the whole story, not even close. Today, we're going to connect the dots that most headlines are missing, and we'll untangle a complicated knot of foreign policies, domestic tax law, and global trade to show you exactly how a war like this wages a second undeclared war on your wallet. Now, we're going to show you why your bigger paycheck might actually be buying you less than your smaller one did just about a month ago. And this isn't just about distant battles and political maneuvering. This is about the price of milk and the cost of your commute and the real hard numbers that determine your quality of life. Now, two massive forces are fighting for control over your finances right now. One is putting money in, and the other is taking money out. The question is, which one is winning? Now, before we can understand the impacts on our wallet, we have to understand the conflict itself. Because what's happening in our hypothetical scenario isn't a small, contained police action, it is a full spectrum military operation, and its scale is staggering. Now, the conflict in this scenario began February 28th, 2026, And with a wave of surprise US and Israeli airstrikes, the primary objective was clear and audacious: the decapitation and degradation of the Iranian regime military capabilities. The most significant of these initial strikes resulted in the death of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Ali Khamenei, an event that sent immediate tremors through the entire region. But that was just the beginning. In the 3 weeks since, the coalition has executed what military analysts are calling one of the most intense air campaigns in modern history. Thousands of individual strikes have been carried out, and these aren't random. They are targeted, strategic, and aimed at the heart of Iran's ability to wage war and project power. Now, key strikes that have been hit include the IRGC headquarters and missile development sites. Israeli forces have expanded operations to hit drone manufacturing plants, and the economic warfare component has been just fierce. Oil refineries have been targeted, crippling Iran's domestic energy supply. And in one of the most significant operations, U.S. forces conducted a major raid on uh, what is that? Kargi Island, Iran's primary oil export hub. And the effects of these strikes has been devastating to Iran's offensive power. And their remaining missile launchers are reportedly slashed to a fraction of their former strength. And the piece of their ballistics uh, strikes, the ability for them to utilize ballistic missiles attacks, has dramatically fallen at a pace lower than everyone else would have expected. He said it will be over in 9 weeks tops. I'm not going to put a pin on 9 weeks tops. I said it was going to be done before summer. And the reason why I'm not going to put a pin in 9 weeks tops is because 9 weeks considers 2 months and 1 week. We're a week and some change away from April, and 2 months and 1 week would likely put it at about June. Actually, I stand corrected. Yes, it'll be over in about 9 weeks tops because I quoted June. I quoted June. And seeing as how we're in the second week of April, we're in the second week of March, going into the third week of March, and about a week or so from now, we'll be in April. 2 months after that, we'll be in June. I would say about June 15th, maybe June 27th, we should be done with this. We should not be doing this in the summertime. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, about 9 weeks tops, 9, 10 weeks tops, I would say. Right. See, now special shout out to FX Trader. That goes, he's paying attention because when I first started talking about this in February, I gave it summer. I gave it right at the beginning of summer. And traders like, yep, we've got a couple months left and it should be done. It's not going to be an overnight thing because these guys are not they're not nowhere near negotiations at this point. America's posture in the region has hardened significantly. The USS George H.W. Bush carrier strike group has been deployed in that area, a floating fortress of American power. In amphibious assault ship and 2,500 Marines also are being prepared for potential deployment, signaling that the possibility of boots on the ground remains on the table. Now, I've also heard some rumors that the National Guard and other forces that have the ICE agents that have been tormenting American citizens over the past couple of months might be recalled from American soil in order to provide aid with boots on the ground in Iran. I have not confirmed that hypothetical yet. However, that would be a peaceful solution to the the ICE raids, giving everybody who is welcome here a fair warning that you've already seen what happened between August and March. You might want to pack your bags and leave before ICE comes back. Because when they come back, they're going to come back with the rest of the U.S. Army. And if you've ever seen a man come back from a fight, they're not willing to negotiate. So 2,500 or 50,000 or so American soldiers come back to America from blowing up Iran and start talking about forcibly removing immigrants that don't belong here. It's going to be a war at home. I'm just saying. Now, Iran, for its parts, has not been passive. Its response has been asymmetric, aimed at maximizing chaos and economic pain for the United States and its allies. Foreign Minister Abbas Egrachi has been defiant, stating that Iran never asked for a ceasefire. So, because we heard rumors were that they were going to negotiate a ceasefire. Their retaliation has been widespread, vowing to target U.S. bases and allied assets, which is where that rumor of the drone strike in California comes from. And Iranian forces have targeted missile defense radars, aircraft hangars, and fuel deposits in a shocking attack demonstrating a new front in modern warfare. And Iranian drones reportedly targeted an Amazon Web Service data center in the Middle East and in the most critical theater of this economic war. Iran has made good on its threat to disrupt shipping in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which roughly 20% of the world's oil supply flows. Now, I just want to point out if Amazon just got bombed in Iran, a lot of people's packages are going to be late. This is not the first time that your packages have been late because in 9/11, your packages didn't make it either. Just want to throw that out there. He said hundreds of TSA workers are quitting because they are not getting paid. Hundreds of TSA workers were fired because they're not getting paid. They just realized that they don't have a job like a month and a half after not having a job. And now they're like, you know what, screw this, I'm out. I mean, you signed up for this job knowing that every year that the government shuts down and has been doing so since before 2017. That we're in 2026, 9 years ago, when the same president was in office shutting down the country for 35 days. So anybody over the past 9 years that thought, oh, I'm going to get a job as a TSA agent and I'm going to be a boss, self-identifying yourself as a federal agent because you're one of the guys in the traffic control tower. Well, congratulations on being a Fed. But now, as a Fed, you will serve your country for free for 2 to 3 months as they work out the DHS bill. One of the biggest issues about the TSA scenario, because the big beautiful bill pays ICE agents for two different pay periods. It is worked into the big beautiful bill. I don't remember if they have like the first 18 months or the first 2 years after the big beautiful bill comes out that those ICE agents are already pre-funded. So the DHS argument is not going to stop TSA agents from doing their thing. And it's not going to prevent TSA agents from getting paid to do their thing where the employees will quit working and then rearrange negotiations. They're going to keep getting paid until the money runs out, which could likely be December or January, right? Now, TSA agents that are not part of the squabble, because that's why DHS bill is not being funded, because ICE agents are supposed to be under the DHS bill. And until they agree to put some type of regulation on ICE agents, taking off those masks so that they can be held accountable for their behavior by the witnesses that are observing, and having first person views of body cameras so that we can see what caused the incident from the perspective of the officer or federal agent. Until they start agreeing to stuff to that effect, the negotiations are not going to happen. I'm just sitting over here like I told y'all this was going down, and not too many people listen. He said it's amazing. The workers don't want to work for free. I mean, when you got out of college, you figured, my internships were over, my community service was over. My probation is done. I don't have to do any more free labor. No, sir. As a Fed, you're gonna do free work. You're gonna work, and then you're gonna realize money eventually. They should have listened to your advice regarding an emergency fund. I was telling everybody in October when they had fired the 250,000 tech workers after laying off like 1.9 million employees. I was telling everybody to start putting together a second income so that when this happens again, because it's going to happen again, and I said it was going to happen on the 30th of January. And the only reason why it didn't happen on the 30th of January today. So what I was saying when I was rudely interrupted was um uh I was telling them that they need to get their stuff together financially. And while they weren't trying to get their stuff together financially, I had warned them that this was going to happen again in January. And the only thing that stopped it from happening on the 30th was there was a contingency that gave 2 extra weeks of funding if in the event that the budget didn't go well. So when I was saying this in October and November that this was going to happen again, I said it. And I was like, look, guys, January 31st, you're not going to have a budget. And you need to start together now. All right. So we're going to hold on. There we go. All right, there we go. And then he said, you don't have expensive. See, I can't see it now. It says, those TSA workers, if they want to continue, uh, they need to. Oh my God, I'm gonna figure this part out, buddy. There it is. If they want to continue, they just need a way to pivot their focus to something else that pays until work resumes. Exactly that. That's actually the realest issue. Is most Americans only have one source of income, and because they only have one source of income, they don't have the capabilities to pivot. They don't have the capabilities to work themselves into an alternative position, and that's one of the things that I try to show everybody is that you have to pivot your money. You have to have alternatives, and they don't have those alternatives. And since they don't have those alternatives because building a um they're not building a second source of income, like because a lot of people's like, well, I got my job, my wife's got her job, and that's it. And if we got kids that are grown, they got their jobs and that's it. So if I lose my job, then I can fall back on my wife and I can fall back on my kids. That's how a lot of Americans think. But that's a problem. If I have a steady income coming in, and then I create a second or third income that can cover me. If my primary source of income stops, I still have another income coming in. And that is how I'm able to maintain stability as the breadwinner. It doesn't matter if my wife can help out. It doesn't matter if my kids can help out. What matters is that I still have money coming in. And for individuals that are single, who don't have a wife, who don't have kids, who don't have extra family members who can contribute in their standard of living, you are your only option. And if you don't have a financial backup plan, you are going to be living off of savings, and you are going to be wondering where you're going to get your money from, because since you did not start in October and November building secondary options that will generate revolving capital, you now in November, December, January, February don't have a backup plan when you got fired again. Because that's what happened. Furloughed is the politically correct term for being fired or laid off. You're released without pay, and you're going to stay released without pay until they figure this out. Doesn't matter if they're going to give you money back after the fact. What matters is that until they give you that money, you have to find out where you're going to get your money from. And that's one of the things that I teach people. It's like you guys have to find a way to have your own backup plan. So if you had a reoccurring capital coming in, Even if it was giving you half of the money that you were making off your primary job, you would still have something to float you until they reimburse you on all the time lost. Like I said before, those people who had borrowed a bunch of money with zero down, and I told them, I said, look, don't just pay all of that stuff back. Let that loan ride with the $0 interest rate and take all the rest of your money and pay for 3, 5, 7 months in advance, and then start using your paycheck to start working on that loan and working on your regular payments. Because if you continue to keep that 3, 7, 9 months of that advancement going on, when your paycheck stops, guess what you would have had in February and March? 2 extra months worth of bills paid, 3 extra months worth of bills paid, where now all you're doing is just putting a little bit of money on the loan that you had borrowed. That's like the only thing that goes undone, but everything else is still taken care of. Michael says, and that's the reason to have an emergency fund and have a side hustle. It's not just the emergency fund, it is also the side hustle. That's the other half of it, because an emergency fund is capital that will be there till it runs out. The side hustle is replenishing the capital so that it doesn't run out. There's a difference between having a backup battery and having a backup generator to plug into the backup battery. The backup battery will hold you down till the generator kicks in, but the generator recharges the damn battery so that you never run out of power. And that's what we're supposed to be doing with our finances. We're supposed to have an emergency buffer between our guaranteed primary source and our backup secondary source. That's what the emergency fund is supposed to be, the buffer between the two. It is not supposed to be the end all be all. You have a hybrid electric car with a gas can in the trunk. Why? Because the electricity will run out, then you'll switch to gas. And when the gas runs out, you use the gas in a gas can. And by the time the gas in a gas can runs out, you should have replenished the electricity under the hood so that you can make it to a gas station and refill the tank. There's never supposed to be a scenario where you ride it till it stops. But a lot of people in America does exactly that with their finances. They ride it till it stops. They stay on that job until that job fires them. They will continue to show up for work until that job stops paying them. They will continue to live the life that they've always lived until that life doesn't work anymore. But they're not preparing for change. While they're living that lifestyle that doesn't work, they're going to tell themselves it ain't always going to be like this and continue to motivate them to endure it. But they're never going to change it. And then when they never change it, they find themselves in a confinement situation where shit just sucks. And now that they're on a downward spiral, now they're looking for a way out. Exactly. Solar, solar plus generator when needed. So if you got a solar panel, you've got the generator, you've got extra gas on the side, you've got the regular electric system. When the regular electric system shuts down, the backup electric system kicks in, the solar runs on that. When those batteries die down, the generator kicks in. When the generator runs out, you can refill it with the gas. By the time you finish with all that gas, the solar panels have replenished the electric batteries. And hopefully, by the time all of those options have gone out, the regular power then came back on. You should never run out. You should never run out. This is what people don't talk about. Now, in this particular conflict that we're dealing with right now, the human cost is already mounting. In this scenario, some estimates place the death toll in the high hundreds, with hundreds of thousands of civilians displaced by the fighting. They're not in the type of wars that we were in 1942, because the places that we would attack when we are trying to conquer someone is the schools and the hospitals, because ain't nobody going to pay attention to how they fighting when the kids daycare center is blown up, and not too many people can be rehabilitated and sent back to combat when the hospitals are blown up. You know when a country is about to be taken over because they destroy the schools and the hospitals first. I know that you say that that's immoral, but you know what? You injure somebody so that 3 people are taken off the battlefield, because it takes 2 people to take a wounded person off the battlefield. You take out 3 times more people with one bullet instead of just eliminating each person, 1 person per bullet. You injure one and have 3 people off the battlefield. This is war tactics. People don't think about this stuff, but this is what we were dealing with back in World War I. But the United States has not been immune with reports of American personnel killed and aircrafts lost, a cost measured in billions of dollars, and more importantly, in those lives. Now, the diplomatic front is a mess. On one hand, the administration claims Iran wants to make a deal, yet in the same breath, they describe the war as just the beginning of building a new country. If it's just the beginning, you are still in the middle of a purge, and until you finish that purge, it is not over. And this is the state of play, a high intensity war with no clear off ramp. It is against this backdrop of smoke, steel, and uncertainty that the first part of our story unfolds. A war that feels a world away, but whose bill is already arriving in your mailbox. It's a war of arbitration. I agree. I agree. Um, Now, I just want to spin this in a way where, like, I'm going to point fingers, and anybody who's a Republican, feel free to jump in and tell me that I'm wrong. I blame the Supreme Court. And the reason why I blame the Supreme Court is because when the Supreme Court stopped Donald Trump from using tariffs to control political arguments, where money wars was all we had to deal with, now we are losing American soldiers because where we could not control them with money, now we control them with brute force. So, anybody who disagrees, put your comments in the comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Because I mean, once you took all his pawns off the table, he just slid a couple queens across the board. It's just like, I don't know what to tell you. He's gonna get what he said he was going after. All right. Now, let's leave the chaos of the Persian Gulf and turn to your finances because while all of this was unfolding, something else was happening and something that was supposed to be a windfall for American workers. We're going to have to discuss how that has been turned on its head. Now, let's imagine a piece of the uh, fictional legislation, and we're going to call that One Beautiful Bill Act, signed into law in our scenario July 4th of 2025, even though it was a little bit later than that. And the legislation contains two key provisions designed as a direct injection of cash into the pockets of middle and working class Americans. No tax on tips and no tax on overtime. These had been rally cry promises, and now they were law. So it's set to take effect for that 2025 tax year and be felt in 2026. He said, no planes, no Navy, no leaders. I agree that SCOTUS makes decisions based on a limited legal view. I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that. the the argument that they had was that the way he was using those tariffs under the laws that he had cited was not appropriate. However, when he was stacking tariffs arbitrarily that could be raised and lowered based on negotiations, he could squeeze their financial platform. And by taking money out of the other person's economy, they will surrender to his demands, which was a non-violent way to control the world government. However, the once he was limited to that 15% max, and we were already at 15.4% across the world. Once he was limited, he can't add any more tariffs under certain circumstances to what's already there, which then leads to be a problem. If they're willing to pay the tariffs that's already there, Trump's capped out and can't really pull any more strings. He can't hit them with 150% tariff, talking about national emergency, right? And that prevents him from doing the things that he did with China. But he got China under wraps. He got Beijing under wraps. He bought out TikTok using that method, trillions of dollars. A lot of things that happened without having to send one soldier to Asia. Unfortunately, that has changed. Now, first, that no tax on tips provision. If people who don't remember that, the law in our model creates a new federal income tax deduction for up to $25,000 in qualified tip income. And this is a game changer for millions in the tip jobs, services, bartenders, stylists, and gig economy workers. Before, every dollar claimed in tips was taxable. Now, a server earning 20,000 a year in tips can deduct that entire amount. It effectively makes their income tax free at the federal level, not the state level. Second, the no tax on overtime provision. And this one is more complex, but just as powerful. The law allowed workers to deduct the premium portion of their overtime pay, not the time and a half, the actual half. So most hourly workers get time and a half, which is the full hour plus a half hour of pay, 40 for hours over 40. That extra half is the premium. So if you make $20 an hour, your overtime rate is $30 an hour, the base $20 and the premium 10. Under this new law, you can deduct that $10 premium for every hour of overtime, and the deduction is capped at about $12,500 for single filers and a generous $25,000 for married couples. Now, when you think about this, if that was a $10 an hour uh, thing, that would be 12,000, 1,250 hours of overtime. Um, let's think about how far off are you getting with that? Because at 1,250 hours of overtime over the course of about 10 months is about 125 hours of overtime per month. Out of 12 months is going to be a little less, maybe about 105 or 110 hours of overtime per month, which is roughly about 20, 25 hours of overtime per week. So when you break this down, they're guaranteeing that if you are a 65-hour a week worker, that 25 hours a week that you get every week, 52 weeks out of the year, would likely be completely cleared for you. Now, this is a massive benefit for the estimated 12% of the United States workforce who regularly put in long weeks. So think about construction workers, nurses, and truckers. Someone working 15 hours of overtime a week at $20 base pay could earn an extra 7,800 in deductible income over the year. On top of these, the bill also makes the 2017 tax cuts permanent and increases the standard deductions. So, on paper, the math looks fantastic. And this was the promise: more of your money in your pocket. But a promise is only as good as the world that it is kept in. And that world was about to get very expensive. So, just as the tax cuts were designed to put money into your wallet, imagine another government action was already in motion to take the money back out of your pocket. And this isn't a line item on your pay stub. It is a hidden tax embedded in the price of nearly everything that you buy. And I'm going to be talking about those tariffs. The story of this hidden taxes begins with a hypothetical Supreme Court ruling on that February 20th, 2026 day, where we imagine the court invalidates some of the broad tariff authority the executive branch had been using. Instead of lowering trade barriers, the administration pivots, invoking a little known provision, which was Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. And the result in our scenario, a sweeping 15% global import surcharge on nearly all goods coming into the United States. And this isn't targeted, it's a blanket tariff, raising the average United States tariff rate dramatically. He says, truckers, if you have the hours to drive, drive. Not gonna lie, bro. With truckers, especially if you got a second driver or an autopilot assist system with truckers, if you've got the capabilities to put in like what they're paying you like 15, 25 cents a mile, 30, 45 cents a minute kind of thing. What are you averaging about 65 cents or 75 cents uh, 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 or minute over the course of several hours, where you start looking at like 30 to $50 an hour, depending on the trucker, and you're out there 18 hours. Because a trucker driving from California to Atlanta is running a route, bro. That's gonna take a few days, you know. And they're gonna camp out in the hotels and camp out at truck stops and camp out in their cab of the trucks, and they're gonna be making those rounds. And if you're getting hours for hours, I'd be running that route too, bro. Now, proponents are arguing that tariffs protect American jobs, but uh, a vast consensus of economists will tell you something else. A tariff is a tax, and you, the consumer, are the one who's going to pay that tax. Studies consistently show that the vast majority of a tariff's cost is passed directly to the end consumer. So the idea that foreign exports will just eat the cost is largely a myth. He said, a trucker is always home in his truck. That's right. Mama used to say, as long as you got a car, you got a house. So let's put this into concrete terms. Economic analysis suggests that a tariff framework in the mid teens, like the one we're imagining, could cost the average American household between $800 and $1,300 per year. And that money just vanishes from your budget. Where does it go? It goes into the price of your car, your electronics, and your appliances. It even hits your grocery bill, as tariffs on steel and aluminum raise the cost of canned goods. The Congressional Budget Office has found that broad based tariffs are a regressive tax, hurting low income households the most because they spend a larger portion of their income on essential goods that are now more expensive. So, while our financial one big beautiful bill has handed you a tax cut, this new tariff policy was quietly implementing a hidden tax on your family. Now, the government was giving with one hand and taking with another. The net gain is already shrinking, and the war hasn't even started. So, if the tariffs was a slow drain on your finances, and the war in our scenario is a sudden violent mugging, the weapon of choice is the price of oil. The global economy runs on oil, and the Strait of Hormuz is its most critical artery. As we discussed, nearly 20% of the world's daily petroleum consumption passes through that checkpoint. And by threatening and attacking tankers, Iran throws a wrench into the gears of the global energy market. The effect is instantaneous. Brent crude oil, the global benchmark, which had been trading around 70 to $80 a barrel, skyrockets. Within days, it blows past 100 and even more dollars a barrel in our scenario, and is currently hovering near about $119 a barrel. So, for anyone who's driving, this isn't an abstract number. It's a direct assault on your budget because the price of crude oil determines the price of gasoline. So let's say before the conflict that the national average for gasoline of regular gas was just under $3 a gallon. As of March 15th, in our scenario, the national average reported by AAA has surged to $3.70. That's a 70-cent increase in less than a month. In California, prices have soared past $5 marks, hitting $5.35 a gallon. Oh, how was the sisterhood jumping onto a stream from 1990? Oh, let's behave, little guy. So let's do the commuter math. The average American drives between 15,000 to 30,000 miles a year. So let's assume that your car gets mileage around $25 miles per gallon. And then at about 15,000 miles a year, you're buying about 600 gallons of gas. A 70-cent increase means that you're now spending an extra $420 a year just to live the same life that you did about a month ago. Now, for super commuters driving 30,000 miles, that's an extra 840 a year. That's not Uber drivers. That's not Lyft drivers. That's not cab drivers. That's not truckers. That's not people who are doing 100 miles a day. That's not people that are which what 360 5,000 miles a year. We're not talking about those people. We're talking about just the average person. And this is the war's first invoice delivered every time you fill up your gas tank. And it doesn't stop there. Higher fuel costs means higher transportation costs for every single good. The trucker industry pays more for diesel, and those costs are passed on to you as well. Economists estimate that for every sustained $10 increase in the price of a barrel of oil, overall consumer price inflation can raise by about 0.2%. A sustained oil price over $100 could add a full percent point to the inflation rate. The war isn't just costing you at the pump, it is a preservation inflation tax that erodes the value of every dollar that you earn. He said it's an Illuminati pyramid scheme. Not really an Illuminati pyramid scheme. You don't even know who Illuminati is. To be honest with you, a lot of people take this fictitious play that there is a secret society that controls the thoughts and minds of every individual. Let's be realistic. Trump wants resources from certain countries to benefit the United States. Those countries don't cooperate, and then bad things happen. That's what we've got going on right now. We're arguing about oil right after we conquered Venezuela's oil, the precious metals from Ukraine. We're going after precious minerals. We're going after resources that we're going to utilize to financially benefit and technologically benefit the United States. He's not over there trying to make peace with another country. He's not over there trying to stop their inner conflict. He's over there to get what he wanted to have. And if he's got to destroy the country to get it, as long as the oil's still there, he's going to do it. Not a pyramid scheme. So the theory is going to be useful, but the real story is personal. So if we have a hypothetical profile based on laws and data that we've been discussing, let's say that we have an individual that represents millions of Americans caught in the financial crossfires. Let's say the individual is a single person that works and serves an average 55 hours a week with a base pay of about $20 an hour. Their regular hourly wages are about $65,000 per year, including that 15 hours of weekly overtime. And then their tips are going to be about $19,500 per year, which totals a gross of about $84,500. Now, let's run the numbers twice. First under the old tax law, and then second under our new hypothetical tax breaks. Under the old rules, the entire $84,500 income would be taxed. After standard deductions, the federal income tax would be roughly around $10,280. Now, let's apply our new 2026 rules. Overtime deductions for premium hours, $10 an hour over the year, that is a $7,800 deduction. Tip deductions. Now, All of it, the $19,500 in tips, can be deducted completely. The new taxable income after the new deductions and the higher standard deductions plummet to just about $41,100. The new federal tax bill approximately $4,712. So, comparing the old bill, $10,280, to the new bill, $4,712, the total savings for an individual in this position is a whopping $5,568 a year. That's an extra $468 a month on paper, making you significantly wealthier. You don't feel that way, but technically you do. Um, but this is going to be in real world scenarios. Now, the paying cost is going to be a little bit different because on the other side of the ledger, the tariffs. So let's take that conservative middle ground and say that that 15% tariff adds about $1,050 to your annual cost of living. Gas prices drives 20,000 miles a year at 25 miles per gallon at about 800 gallons of gas. That's the 70% increase hike to an extra $560 per year. Second order of inflation is going to be the higher energy costs, pushed up prices for everything else, especially food. And then we're going to have an extremely conservative, and let's say this adds it to be about $25 a month to your bill or another $300 a year. So if we add that up, you have about $1,050 for the tariffs, $560 more for the gas, $300 extra dollars for the inflation. It's about $1,910 in new unavoidable annual expenses. Now for the moment of truth. If we take the gain and subtract it from the pain, if you have a $5,568 tax cut and the war and the tariff cost is an additional $1,910, the net real gain is about $3,658. So in this situation, you still come out on top and significantly so, but the power of the combined tip and overtime deduction is so immense that it overwhelms the current cost. But look at how fragile that victory is, though. A third of the tax cuts is instantly vaporized by an event completely outside of your control. And what if that was a salaried worker with no overtime, or a worker in a non-tip job? What if oil hit $150 a barrel, which is possible, where some analysts are modeling it now, and that 70 cent uh, per gallon price increase becomes $1.50 per gallon price, and the gain withers even more. The tax cut is a fixed number. The cost of the war and the tariffs are a dynamic, aggressive force that is actively growing. One of the other issues that we have with this concern is that if we take into consideration the individuals that are hourly workers that work salary, fixed hours, 35 hours a week, or 40 hours a week with a 1 hour lunch, 5 days a week, no overtime hours, no tip, you're not benefiting from the tax cut, but you have an extra $2,000 a year worth of income that's coming out of your pocket, which is going to be averaging you close to $200 a month coming out of your pocket, more than what you used to pay. And that's if you're not a government worker that's fired right now with an extra $200 a month worth of expenses that you have to pay. Yeah, let's talk about the worst side of this. Now, you may have gotten a raise, but you're now in a race against geopolitical chaos. This illustrates new economic realities. Now let's zoom out because this combination of policies creates a specific set of winners and losers. The winners, for now at least, are people like in the example I gave you, high overtime workers and high tip earners. And if you have a high overtime worker that also gets tips, that's a fantastic dynamic. But if you have a high overtime worker that doesn't get tips, they're not really getting that much money after you have to pay an extra $2,000 to the changes in our society. And if you have a high tip earner with no overtime hours, that individual is also not benefiting because the 5,500 was a combination of all year overtime hours plus uh, uh, the higher margin of tip rate. If we didn't have the overtime hours, they would have been making about half of that or less, which would have left them with far less after you took out the 2 grand. They only would have had like $50 extra a month worth of spending money, which is enough to buy you a Snickers every day. He says there are a lot of people who never reach 40 hours because employers do not want to pay benefits, and those people will be hit the hardest. That is actually fantastic. You're looking at people that are part-time workers where they're working 21 hours a week. You have workers that work less than 35 hours a week where they're working a 30-hour a week paycheck on a job that mandatorily requires benefits be offered for 35 hours or more. So those parties are not allowed to hit 35, where they are forced to clock out at 34 so that they never trigger benefits. And then they are not going to get tipped out because those aren't jobs that do tips, because any hospitality is going to be working their workers to death. But any office building is going to be like, that's okay. We can get somebody else to do it. We can get our interns to do it. So you end up in a position where you're only making uh, uh, um, 30 to 34 hours a week worth of hours. So your regular pay isn't enough. And you're not going to get the deductions for overtime, and you're not going to get the deductions for the tips because you're not getting that. And you're going to be hurting more than everyone else because you have an extra $2,000 a year to pay, because of everybody's got to pay this. This is going to be factored into everybody's pay. So yeah, they're going to be hit the hardest. And then with privatized healthcare, the government isn't really paying for that much Medicaid and Medicare as much as they used to. Food stamps ain't going around as much as they used to. Uh, People are going to start getting cut off. People are going to stop getting benefits. And then as people stop getting benefits, they're not going to have as much money as they used to have. They're not going to have as much food on the table as they used to have. They're not going to have as much capital gains as they used to have. And then they still have to manage where they're going to get the money from. this is a huge this is a huge up and a huge down. So the winners that we have for now are people like in the example I gave, high overtime with high tip earners. For them, the fictional one big beautiful bill is going to be working. The losers are much more broader groups. Commuters see their tax cuts bleed out at the gas pumps. Retirees on fixed income get none of the new deductions, but pay a lot more cost. You're also going to think about how bus fare is going to start going up because of all of the gas prices. Low wage, non tipped hourly workers face the same price increases as everyone else with very little benefit. And workers in import reliant industries face the risks of layoffs as their employers struggle with rising costs. So, what we could be witnessing is stagflation, a toxic mix of stagnant growth in a high inflation environment. The war is a supply shock driving up prices, while the tariffs acts as a drag on economic activity. The Federal Reserve gets caught in a trap, raise interest rates to fight inflation and risk recession, or cut rates to spur growth and risk letting inflation run wild, because Americans don't know how to save money and not waste money on bullshit. The oil shock of the 1970s provide a chilling historical precedent. So a war in the Middle East led to an energy crisis, which led to soaring inflation and economic misery. History is going to be clear here. Foreign wars are never just foreign. They always find their way back home like a lost puppy. The situation remains volatile. And if a conflict like this drags on for several months, the economic consequences could be far more severe. A scenario where oil hits $150 a barrel is no longer a fragile theory. In a world like this one, any gains from the tax cuts would be completely erased for almost everyone and replaced by a deep and painful recession. Again, is that with the amount of money that was printed in the last year alone, inflation will never go away. You're not lying, bro. You're not lying. So one of the main reasons why inflation sticks around is because of people are willing to spend money. America is considered one of the richest countries in the world because everybody is able to make money to pay for whatever it is you're willing to sell at whatever price point you're willing to sell it at. Americans find value in the cost of the item, not the benefit of the item. So they will buy it because it's expensive, not because it's durable. They'll buy it because it's expensive and it is attached to a brand name, not because it is beneficial to them over a long period of time. They will buy it as a fashion statement or a social status statement, not as something that will help their family survive. So, because Americans are wasteful, we will spend extra money for the first one and spend even more money for the last one. But we won't say that's too damn expensive and I'm not spending my money on that. And I will prefer to do without anything that is not a basic need instead of wasting money on lavish wants. That is where inflation comes from. It's not just the rise in cost because consumers are willing to pay the price when the big business rise the price off to the customer. If the customer stops paying at a certain price point, then either the product cost is going to have to go down, or the wages for the workers are going to have to go down, or the shipment cost is going to have to go down because the customer's not going to pay more than that. If the item stops at $10 an item, or if the item stops at $20 an item, and no one will buy it once you start pricing it above $20 an item, then they can't continue to raise the price. If people stop buying milk when milk starts going above $3 a gallon, all the milk in the store will spoil before it gets sold. People will stop pricing milk above $3 a gallon because nobody will buy it above $3 a gallon. The only reason why the milk can be priced at $5 a gallon is because people have paid $5.50 for it. The only reason why the eggs can be $13 for a carton of eggs is because people are willing to pay $15 for it. The reason why they're able to raise toilet paper up to $5 a roll is because people were willing to pay $10 for it. That's why inflation is still here. Is that I'm guilty of this. If it has a Nike check mark, that increases the chance of it hitting the shopping cart. No more, but most of my life, this was the case. But this is the case of everybody. People who buy Jordans not because it's a durable shoe, but because it has a little shadow of a silhouette of a man dunking a ball on it. And Jordans are no more durable than Timberlands, and Timberlands are no more durable than those steel toe boots in Walmart for $35. So at the end of the day, if you really wanted to get you a pair of shoes, you could just go get you a pair of shoes from Walmart and save what you could get it for 10% of the price of the shoes. So you'd be saving like $320 on shoes just to get a no name brand shoe from Walmart. The Nike check does not bring value to the shoe. The Nike check brings price to the shoe, but you can find a pair of Nikes in certain outlet stores that are 25 or $30 a piece. But that's not the one you're going to buy. You're going to go buy the one that everybody's got. They cost $175 a piece. I'm not knocking, but I'm just saying this is the stuff that makes people waste money. But when you go look at dress shoes, plain Jane dress shoes, the ones that are $25 a piece, buy two, get one free kind of situation where you just spent $50 on three pairs of shoes. And then you think about with Nike for $300, they'll give you four pairs of shoes. Or Reebok might give you five pairs of shoes for $300. But for Jordan, they will give you one shoe for $300. And if it's a shoe that's above a size 12, you're spending $400 for that shoe. People are willing to waste money on it and let it be a limited edition. Because it's rare, they can charge more money on it. Because low supply, high demand, charge more price. But see, if Americans said, I'm not willing to spend above this price, doesn't matter if it's a low supply. The demand stops at a certain price point and nobody will buy it after that price point. That's a second time in the show. I told you I was prepared for this. So, now they're going to bring it back. Okay, so what I was saying before I was rudely interrupted by the internet was uh when you're dealing with that extra hike up, if we say, well, it doesn't matter how big the supply is, the demand stops at a fixed rate. And if the demand stops at a fixed rate, then we're not paying for that item. Then the item stops being sold at higher rates. But as long as people are willing to pay more money, he says stop bouncing. I got I don't know what to tell you, buddy. I don't know. This old school style. This old school style. So if we start changing things, he's my boss when I was shaking the screen trying to get the thing to work on the cell phone because I had to put me on screen. When, when we stop contributing to the inflation, inflation stops. But as long as we're willing to pay that higher cost, as long as we will shrug our shoulders and say, oh, well, and pay the extra price at the grocery store, inflation is going to continue. And because we have 75% of 385 million Americans, if 5 or 6 people stop paying the cost, it's not going to change anything. Uh, 200 or 300 million Americans stop paying that cost, then the price stops, then the buck stops because they'll be hurting, right? But this is going to be the kind of analysis that you're often not getting from the nightly news. And they're going to show you the sound bites and the rising price at the pump, but they won't always connect the dots on how it's impacting you directly. And if you believe this kind of deep dive is important, you got to make sure that you have hit that like and subscribe button and mash those reaction buttons because I'm giving you guys this information every day of the week and I want to hear from you guys. Now, this isn't actually theoretical exercises because if you look at your pay stubs, your gas receipts, and your grocery bills, you're going to see that this is an ongoing issue that's continuing to get worse as time goes on. Definitely let me know in the comment section. Have you done the math for your own situation? And are you coming out ahead or are you falling behind? Because the truth is, the story of this hypothetical 2026 scenario is one of two powerful opposing forces. On the one side, a domestic policy designed to increase the wealth of the American workers, and on the other side are a foreign policy and a trade policy that are imposing new hidden taxes and driving up the cost. Now, your paycheck might indeed be a lot bigger than it used to be, but that number is a lie if you don't account for what it can actually buy. The real measure of your wealth isn't the number on your pay stub, it is your purchasing power after you've paid for gas, groceries, and all of the tariff inflated goods that you need to live and sustain your regular standard of living. This is before impulse buying and clubbing and self gratification. The crucial lesson is that we cannot evaluate economic policy in a vacuum. A tax cut, no matter how large, can be consumed by inflation driven by other government actions. A war, no matter how distant, is never free. It costs, and those costs are going to be paid not only by the soldiers, but by every citizen every time they go to the store or fill up their car. Now, yes, we can go and buy a lot more gas. Shell, Chevron, and ExxonMobil, good to own right now. You will see a large quantity of inflation in those stocks, but that's not going to offset the tariffs. If you're investing in any companies that does international shipping, like Zimstock, they're going to be impacted by this, and you might see less shipments, which will cause the stock to go down. In the end, every foreign war is a domestic issue, and every tariff is a household tax. And this conflict unfolding thousands of miles away is being fought in part right inside of your wallet. The question is, have you asked yourself, is this a win for you or is it a loss? Which is a really good question. He said, did you research that NACO mortgage? No, I did not. I did say I was going to do it. Hands down, I said I was going to do it. That NACO mortgage is something worth talking about. I did say I was going to cover it. Tomorrow I'm supposed to be talking about mutualities and annuities. And I will do my due diligence with trying to find out the information about that NACO mortgage and try to factor that into tomorrow's discussion where we can discuss how to benefit from investing in annuities and mutualities and potentially the upsides of squeezing in this NACO mortgage, who can qualify for it, who can use it, and how they can turn that into a profitable investment opportunity. Because on Tuesdays, we give you guys the capabilities to find different ways to make, save, and invest money. And a NACO mortgage might be a good investment opportunity for first time home buyers. And it also might be for small business owners who want to expand on their real estate portfolio, one house or one duplex at a time, as long as you're able to have the capital or the proper financial background to qualify for the mortgage so that you can use that mortgage to get you on the ground running. And then you're able to utilize assets to leverage another one. You can find yourself in a position where you can double down on all of the expansions capable, even in the devastating surpluses of expenses that we have going on right now during the war. But don't worry, Sean Banks. Special shout out to Sean Banks. I am not going to give up on that model. We typically talk about investment opportunities on Tuesday. So when you brought it to me, it wasn't it wasn't investment Tuesday. So since then, I haven't done anything with it because I want to put all that stuff together and then really go through it in detail and then be able to provide a lot more information for everybody. Michael says, my wallet is already empty. Well, you one foot in the grave and the other foot on a banana peel, Michael. You're not supposed to have no fat wallet because you not doing something right. If you ain't living life to the fullest by now, you should have found a way to be on the last 10 years worth of income, unless you got somebody to will the rest of it too. You could put it into a trust and then make the podcast a trustee of it, or not a trustee, a beneficiary, a survivorship beneficiary. And then when you pass over, all of your wealth can pass over to the podcast, and then the podcast can go viral. So it's wild. The things that you never think about. Just like when Sean brought us a different mortgage, because a lot of us know about the FHA, we know about VAs if we have veterans in our families, we know about the HUD and other such scenarios, but we don't know about everything around everything. And when something like the NACO mortgage is something that's been out there for a while, but not long enough for everybody to know about it, and it is the craziest thing that we have other options to benefit from, right? And you could potentially request that particular type of mortgage from your mortgage lender if you know what you're looking for. He said, I'm stuck in the ice in Michigan. Man, what are you stuck in the ice for? There ain't no reason why you should be stuck in the ice. Did you bring hot coffee with you? Pour some hot coffee on the ice. You can melt the ice. What they say, bring salt with you and throw the salt on the snow. I don't know how true that is. I don't know how well that works. Uh, they had the chains stuck twice. They got the chains that you're supposed to be able to put around your tires so that you can like peel through it. I don't know how well that stuff works either because I don't drive in ice. Y'all understand? I work on the podcast and then I work on the computer. So when it is cold, when it is raining, when it is ice outside, my car don't move for weeks. I got a solar panel on the dashboard attached to a battery that is attached to a battery in my car. So I've got two batteries keeping my car capable of being started at a moment's notice so that I can crank that bad boy up after 3 weeks of it sitting still and never being started up. And I got a voltage regulator on it where I can look through the window and see that it still got 12.1 volts on it. I don't got to do nothing. Use kitty litter to get out. Okay. Now I'm at Lowe's. Well, you at Lowe's. So what you can do at Lowe's is you can rent a shovel and dig it out, right? Well, you can buy a shovel and put it in the trunk, and then you can like dig it out whenever you want to. But yeah, you can dig it out. So the goal, what you want to do is if you're going to get a shovel and dig yourself out, you're going to want to dig a really big trail behind the car. And then you want to dig from the front tire to the back tire, get that out. You want to back the car up a little bit and then floor it and it'll kind of pop a wheelie out of the snow. Yeah, yeah. In the morning, yeah, that's going to be dangerous because in the morning the ice will melt a little bit and freeze, and then you're going to be stuck again because everything going to be frozen up. He said, my car wasn't getting on the interstate to go to work today. I saw the conditions outside and used a personal day as I put on some coffee. But see, that's the thing. Like the hardest part I got to deal with, taking the dog out for a walk. That's it. I'm not even gonna try to go much further than that. I got the snow boots. We just gonna get out there and go around the neighborhood and come right on back into the house, and that's it. And we ain't going nowhere else. He said, NACO mortgage, pros and cons. Pros, low interest, no down payment. Con, long process and documentations, usually for low income. Okay, special shout out to Michael for doing that research for us. I'm gonna dig into it. Because one of the things that we have to understand is that if the low income individuals, the bottom 25%, the 30, $45,000 a year individuals have an opportunity where if you meet the qualifications, you can go from spending $2,000 a month renting an apartment to spending $800 a month buying a house. You can cut your housing cost in half, which gives you extra money to invest. And then if you invest in the right places, you can put money in a location where your money is making money for you. And then because your mortgage is going to be on a fixed rate for 30 years, you don't have to experience that 4% rate increase on your mortgage bill, on your rent, which then if you're getting a house that is ready to move in and maintenance in good condition, you're likely to see the money that you're putting aside can help cover certain costs like minor repairs. If you're looking at things that might need to be fixed coming soon or might need to be maintenance coming soon, and you're going to budget this money and put it away in high interest accounts and generate that revenue over extended periods of time, then what you're looking at is coming across a position where when you do need the money, your brokerage account can pay for it. Your high interest savings account can pay for it. Your money mutuals, your annuities can pay for it. Your second property can pay for it. Your fifth duplex can pay for it. And if you've got that coming in by the time repairs are needed, if you see something that needs to be serviced, instead of you having to wait a few months before you get that servicing, you've already planned for that service and you have been waiting for that service to be required. Say, for example, you got a house with a roof that in about 20 years you're going to need to service the roof. You start putting money aside for that roof service over the next few years. By that 20-year mark, the quantity of money that you would have put away will be able to cover that roof cash up front. And when you start talking about a 20 years on a roof, and you think about your 20-year plan, he said 15 years max. Monthly plan, monthly payment really not much more than a 30-year mortgage. That save the savings is in the interest saved. That is true. Well, if they're doing a 15-year max mortgage with monthly payments that are about the same price as a 30-year mortgage, then that's even better because you're looking at getting $100,000 house and only paying on it for 15 years instead of paying on it for 30. So instead of you having to pay $250,000 on a house, you might only have to pay $175,000 on a house for 15 years. You're going to save a lot more money on the interest. But one of the things you have to understand though is that if you have a 15-year max mortgage on this property, right? You hold that mortgage for 5 or 10 years, right? Then you remortgage the property on a 30-year fixed mortgage on a house that you already have. You can get it at a lower rate. All of the equity that's gone into the property now, they're going to pay some of that down. Then they're going to stretch the payments of the house out. You're already in the house. There's no closing costs. You can refinance with any lender. The mortgage company that puts you in the house today does not have to be the mortgage lender that you finish paying off the house with in 5, 10, 20 years. But if you got 15 years with the first lender, 10 years in, especially if you're overpaying on a mortgage, 10 years in, you can say refinance with a new person and now stretch it from 15-year limit to a 30-year limit. If you were paying a 1,500 a month on a 15-year mortgage, and then you refinance it with a 30-year fixed rate, now you're paying 750. You went from paying 2,000 a month on an apartment to 1,500 for a house to 750 for the same house. Instead of a 4% inflated cost, you're looking at like a 75, 50 to 75% deduction every 5 or 10 years. Your cost of living goes down as inflation goes up. Is that after buying it, I rent it out and pay it off in 8.5. Well, according to from what Sean said, that you have to live in it for a while. So you buy it, you live in it for a while, you pay it down a little bit, you remortgage it to a scenario that's not going to make it mandatory for you to live in it, and then you rent it out and let the tenant pay for the property. But um that mentality that you have is if that's not your primary home, if that's the second house or the fifth house or the second duplex or the fifth duplex that you're buying. But if you are this is your first time going from roommate scenario to buying your own house, going from living with your family to buying your house, going from paying your landlord to paying for your own place, you're going to move into it, you're going to live there and you're going to stay there. And then if you decide to leverage that property to get you another property, you might live in one of them and then pay for and have the tenant pay for both of them, or you might pay off this house or pay down this house, then remortgage it, reduce your payments because this is your primary homestead. But you can always leverage your primary homestead with a HELOC and then buy you a second property and have your second property pay for both properties. If your tenant is paying 1,500 to 2,000 a month and the mortgage itself costs 1,500 a month for both houses, you can still pay off both houses. But the deal is that you have to get into your own house first. Then you can do all of these other things. He say, yes, live in it for mandatory time, usually 6 months, 6 months to a year. I believe that some places have a minimum of a year, 6 months to a year. And after you've lived in it for that period of time, then you can kind of start making some changes and then move and put somebody else into it. Because one of the things you have to recognize is that if you don't already have your own place to stay, you can't just say I'm going to live in it for 6 months and then I'm going to move, because that's going to put you back into renting. You have to live in it for 6 months, find another house to live in that you can own, and then factor that house into this mortgage or this mortgage umbrella where your tenant is paying for both houses. That way you don't have to pay for anything. That the goal is to expand on your assets. You don't want to go backwards from owning houses to renting apartments unless you don't want responsibility. But if you're trying to expand on housing, you want to make sure that you buy a house, pay it down, leverage it to buy another house, and then start putting or buy a house, pay it down, leverage it, buy a duplex or a fourplex, and have all the extra tenants in the fourplex paying on the first house and the fourplex. You can do that too. As long as you set it up in a way where your money is making money for you eventually. You want to scale up and phase out your responsibilities. That is the goal. No matter what you do in life, you want to scale it up where you started off paying for this, but now you're having other people pay for it for you. You want to remove yourself from the responsibilities and have everybody else take over and do what they're supposed to do. And that is how you make things work for your retirement. Because when you retire, when you are officially done in life, with responsibility, you have nothing left to do. Somebody is taking care of all of your needs. You have the trustee handling all of your assets. You have a financial advisor handling everything else. The money is coming in regularly, and whatever's coming in that you're going to be utilizing and spending money to entertain yourself, that's what you're going to be doing. You're not going to have all of this extra work to do, micromanaging properties and all this other stuff. It's cheaper to buy the land and build it yourself. It is if you have the money for it though, because you can buy a couple of acres of land for $5 or $10,000, and if you have the financial backing to spend $250,000 to build a house, then yeah. But most mortgages or most loan companies are not going to loan you money for a ground up construction. You have third party private investors that'll front you money for a ground up construction, but most financial opportunities are not going to be ground up construction funding. So if you have the money to pay for a ground up construction, yeah, it might be cheaper. But if you're going to think about no money down, no closing costs, and then monthly payments, it's cheaper to move from your apartment into your house where the only thing you're paying is the movers. That's cheaper than $250,000 ground up construction. So hypothetically, in a vacuum, it's cheaper to buy a piece of land and then build your house from the ground up. But realistically, it's cheaper to mortgage a property where the monthly payments are less than your current rent. In the logic dictates that your average monthly cost has to go down so you have extra money. And then when you think about opportunity cost, if your mortgage is less than your rent and the money that you're putting into your brokerage account is more than the interest rates on your mortgage, you are profiting more from your brokerage account paying your mortgage than what you would have investing in the equity in the property. And you're saving money, more money than what you would have spent on the rent. He said, only time I'm retiring is when I'm 6 feet under. And once you change your mind and start thinking about true retirement, that's when you're going to start realizing that everything I'm telling you makes more sense. Because if you don't need to do anything, you don't have to. If you have a job, uh, we'll build you a cabin. Yeah, and if you have enough land, you can build a bunch of cabins and turn it into a resort and rent it out to a bunch of people, especially out here in the snow, summer cabins. But the dynamic is your ultimate mission in life is to automate everything. You want to piece together a way to remove your responsibility from your responsibility at the expense of others. So you're not just getting financial advisors on payroll. You have a trustee to handle all of your affairs. Wherever your trustee stops, you have an accountant to have it handle everything else. You have property managers managing everything else, and that's coming out of the profits. Whatever's left goes to you. You have a trust that's designed where when you pass on, your legacy gets whatever's left. As you build life up, it is up to them to fight the good fight for you. Where now you can sit Mai Tais on a yacht in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle. You can build a real estate development company in the Philippines. You can build one in Japan. You can build another one in South Korea. You can build another one in Vietnam. You can build another one in Afghanistan. You can build another one in Zimbabwe and just continue to expand your portfolio. You can have an international business that is designed to make sure that you have revolving wealth and your lineage also has similar revolving wealth. But in order for you to lock that in, you have to start changing the mindset of I'll stop working when I'm dead or I'll retire when I'm dead. You don't need to you need to think about I'm stopping now because I don't need to do this anymore. Esteban's got it, you know. Somebody's got to hold the fort down for you. You roll out of bed to get something to eat. You roll out of bed to take a shower. You roll out of bed to go for a walk. Sip you some gold sweet tea on your porch in your rocking chair, enjoying the sun. You're not outside cutting the grass because somebody's cutting the grass for you. You're living the kind of lifestyle where you don't need to do anything else. A stress-free lifestyle, the ultimate financial freedom, financial and realized freedom. But it requires you to first prioritize that dynamic. Now, that's all I got for you guys for tonight. I know it wasn't a lot. We've been running a habit over the past few weeks of doing like 3 and 6 hour shows. I've noticed it. I'm like, dang, Y'all have been highly interactive. I really love it. But we didn't have a lot of information for today because I mean, not a lot of stuff is going with the politics. But I'm more than likely going to have a lot more stuff for you guys for tomorrow because, like I said, we're going to be talking about the mutualities. We're going to be talking about, yeah, that's right, Michael. It's the mindset, changing your mindset. That's the first step in improvement. We're going to be talking about the mutualities. We're going to be talking about the annuities. We're going to be going into the ins and outs of that narco mortgage, and then we're going to be trying to figure out how to utilize these things to improve and benefit our financial portfolios so that we can use it as an investment option. He said, remember to like and subscribe. Definitely remember to like and subscribe. So, on my way out, I'm going to start by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you, ladies, to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. Special shout out to those of you that's watching us from Twitch. Um, Fellas, I give you guys this information to make you guys higher value men, but it requires you to pay attention to the things in your life that you can control, that you don't like, that need to change, and then proactively put forth the effort to change that. Then you have, with that better lifestyle, the capabilities and mindset change, like Michael just said, to navigate around the things that you can't change. And then, ladies, while this is not this is a male-driven podcast from a male's perspective. This isn't a red pill, blue pill, black pill podcast. This is a male-driven podcast from the mindset of men, where we're helping you also have that capability of making yourselves higher value women because you can benefit from the exact same information, especially the alpha boss ladies that run it through the feminist model. By knowing what the men are looking for, you know how to adapt to that, but you still also have to find that 20-year plan. Where do you want to end up in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years? What do you got to do to get there? And then reverse engineer that all the way down to your first steps. And as you start proactively performing on your 20-year plan, you keep your eyes and ears open to the type of suitor that is able to mesh with your 20-year plan. And then you can get that success together where you can accomplish your goals twice as fast. Instead of one person making their success story in 20 years, two people can make that same success story in 10. I've given you guys that information every time we talk, every week, every month. Two people, 30, 40, $50,000 a year incomes come together, living on one income, invest the other half of the income. You're living off of 50% of your combined income, investing the other half. Anything $30,000 or more that you're investing into a brokerage account every year, you're looking at between half a million and $1 million in 10 years, and between a million and $1.5 million in 20 years, which means that in 20 years, especially if you're doing more than a 10% interest, 10 to 20% interest, you're looking at somewhere around $100,000 to $180,000 a year that you will be getting back, and that is 6 times more than what you're making individually. If both of you are making 30,000 a year, if you're now getting paid 180,000 a year in 20 years, that's way more money coming back than what you were making going in. Once you double your standard of living, both of y'all can quit. Once you quadruple your standard of living, both of y'all can quit and elevate your lifestyle by 25%. Now you're living at 75% of an inflated cost. If your $180,000 a year income allows you to pay for an $80,000 a year lifestyle with $40,000 of play money and invest another $50,000 back into the brokerage account, or $40,000 back into the brokerage account, you can account for inflation, still live a life of luxury, and go from the bottom 25 to the upper 70%. So you're not just dealing with lifestyle creep, you're dealing with lifestyle stability. And the last 25% of your life should be living a life that y'all built together, not riding the coattails of one. So take that into consideration as we get prepared for tomorrow night's show. I want to thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night.
Higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate. That's my personal command. I'm not mounted on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical